9 interesting things about sleep. Number 9. Our brains never stop. We aren't really aware of what's happening to us while we sleep. Well, besides those folks who are able to lucid dream. For most of us, it feels as though our consciousness slowly shuts down as we fall asleep. So for a very long while, scientists believe that our brains go quiet every night, kind of like a computer on standby. Any anxious insomniac nowadays can tell you that's not true though. You know all those great ideas you forget by morning? So, back in the 1920s, when the EEG was still a new thing, they gathered some people and stuck a whole lot of electrodes onto their heads to non-invasively record their brains while they slept. This study showed that the brain of a sleeping person is still super active, only in a different way. Instead of many dynamic processes it runs while we're awake and going about our busy lives, the sleeping brain operates in large waves of slow activity. These wave patterns later led to discovering different phases of sleep and different neural waves. Number 8. Blue light prevents your rest. There is a lot of fear floating around regarding the negative effects technology could have on our health. For example, we bet everyone knows at least one person who is afraid of cell phones causing cancer, right? But there's an even more sneaky threat: sleep disruption. Research into this started back in the 90s, and apparently blue light, the wavelength of light that our smartphones, laptops, and other devices emit, strongly affects the production of a sleep hormone called melatonin. Its effect is even stronger than that of natural white daylight, and considering that white light keeps us up all day, that's saying something. Exposure to blue light for just a few hours before bedtime badly disrupts our sleep cycle and messes up our circadian rhythm, better known as the body clock, which in turn creates a host of health problems. Considering that an average tech user nowadays is exposed to blue light all through the day, no wonder doctors are worried. That's why there are a lot of apps out there that change your screen light to a warmer color to try and reduce the negative effects. 7. The natural alarm clock is a bogart. While most of us absolutely hate the sound of the alarm clock on a Monday morning, there are some lucky people in the world who can make themselves wake up more or less whenever they want to without all the bells and whistles. What's more, an average person can actually train themselves to do it, although it requires a fair bit of time and effort, especially if you have a nasty boss at a morning job. But, as it turns out, it might not be such an enviable skill after all. Researchers have recently discovered that the way it works is that these people basically scare themselves awake. The body waking up without any external stimulant, such as an alarm clock, is the result of the sudden release of a stress hormone called adrenocorticotropin. You literally stress yourself out of sleep. The research suggests that people who wake up on their own have actually trained their brains, mostly by accident, to anticipate the stressful feeling of having to wake up on time. When their internal clocks come near the hour they've set on a clock, the stress hormone is released, and they force themselves awake before the alarm clock can start screaming at them. Number 6. Our ancestors didn't sleep more. If you think back to the Middle Ages or ancient times, you might think our ancestors got the fabled 8 hours of sleep no problem, and then some. After all, they didn't have smartphones and internet notifications to keep them awake and went to bed as soon as it got dark like chickens. As it turns out, that probably isn't true. In 2015, researchers were studying some hunter-gatherer tribes which led a similar lifestyle to what our ancient ancestors probably lived like. They sleep 6 to 7 hours a night on average, but wake up and walk around more than people in the industry-driven Western societies. What this means for history is, our ancestors would have to get up in the middle of the night to check for danger and such, so they probably slept around the same length of time as we do, but didn't get as much rest. 5. Sleep is the brain's dishwasher. So, we've seen already that the brain never stops, even while we sleep, but even the brain needs to rest sometimes. This actually happens in the background while we sleep. Certain cells in the brain called astrocytes contract during sleep, which expands the total space between brain cells by about 60%. This allows cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, to flow more freely. CSF is similar to blood plasma and serves to maintain the chemical balance in our brain, but when it flows through these widened cracks, it also acts as a cleaning fluid. It takes away all the toxic debris that piled up during the day. This is a critical process because too much of such debris is thought to cause disorders and diseases such as Alzheimer's. 4. Sleeping helps you heal. It's already old news that we feel exhausted when we're sick. Everyone who comes down with the flu or something just wants to curl up in a blanket and nap all day. Believe it or not, that's your body actually asking for its own medicine. Sleep is a crucial component in healing properly. When a person doesn't sleep right, the body assumes something is wrong and our immune system becomes overactive and produces too many inflammatory molecules which are released into our blood. If they're already sick, it gets even worse. This can lead to some serious problems like chronic inflammation and developing autoimmune disorders, when our own immune system attacks our own body thinking it's the enemy. Not only is sleep crucial for proper recovery from a disease, it is also important in speeding up the healing of wounds and other injuries, like bruises or fractures. 3. Lack of sleep increases pain. There is a short and tight bridge between insomnia and chronic pain. If something hurts all the time, there's no way you can relax and go to sleep, obviously, right? Well, now we know that it actually works the other way around. Back in the 1970s, a group of scientists found that patients who were deprived of sleep for some reason or another developed sore muscles all over their bodies. In the mid-2000s, another study found that patients who reported various symptoms of insomnia were more sensitive to any kind of pain, and the longer they went without sleep, the worse it got. So the way that sleep deprivation increases pain is sneaky. It actually increases your sensitivity to it. Basically, it objectively hurts the same, but you feel it way stronger. For example, if you can't sleep and you go get yourself a glass of water and stub your toe along the way, it'll hurt twice as bad as it would on a normal day. 2. Sleep helps solidify your memories. We have all been told by our teachers, worried parents, friendly neighbors, and various study tip manuals to always get a good night's rest before a big test or a job interview, but it turns out that we literally need it. This was discovered about 100 years ago, back in the 1920s. Researchers ran an experiment. They taught people nonsense words and split them into two groups. One was told to take a nap before the test. The other was forbidden from napping. Can you guess who scored better? The functions which help us remember facts and events rely on a particular area of the brain, which in turn relies on sleep. It works like a huge storage system which uses your sleeping time to go through all of its massive inventory, sort it all into neat little categories, and consolidates all the various information into something that will still make sense in the morning. There is a catch to it, though. Only the sleep during which you have no dreams works for this purpose. Number 1. Sleeping can be deadly. Pulling a few all-nighters in a year because you have exams or an evil workload might be okay, but going without sleep for too long can actually be lethal. The first case of this happening was recorded way back in the 1800s in a certain Italian family. A man called Giacomo suffered from terrible insomnia, which grew in dementia, which ended with him dying. As it turned out, his descendants suffered from the exact same set of problems with the same result. It took almost 2 centuries to figure it out. In the 1970s, scientists finally identified the incurable genetic disorder which they named fatal familial insomnia. Fortunately, this genetic mutation is extremely rare, but unfortunately, you don't have to inherit it. Progressive insomnia, with whatever kind of cause in the background, leads to hallucinations and delirium and finally kills. Because the metabolic system never gets a chance to rest, the body can't keep up with itself anymore and the various organs eventually fail. Thanks for watching DTR. Don't forget to click subscribe. Up next, 10 interesting dinosaur facts you didn't know were true. 65 million years ago. Although over the past few years there have been many efforts to debunk this popular Hollywood myth, a lot of people still have a problem wrapping their heads around it, especially when photos like this pop up. How is that not a plesiosaurus of some sort? Look at its 4 flippers, broad but flat body, and a thin jaw.